Don't you dare suggest Denver is sweeping homeless camps to prepare for the All-Star game. City doesn't like it when you say that. But changes to how people can move about Denver, that is totally a response to the incoming crowds. Denver's air quality is often, how should we say it, hot garbage. And when our Marshall Zellinger started looking into the numbers, he saw something really strange. And a city wants to give one of its greats flowers while he's living.
There's a day that he will no longer be with us, and this allows him to leave that legacy.
Naming things for living people is tricky business, though. That's next. Week from tonight, Denver is going on display. City clearly wants to look and function its best while in the national spotlight for baseball's All-Star game. Now, we told you about the homeless camp sweeps, which the city insists are not at all tied to the All-Star game. The changes to public transportation coming? Oh yeah, they're connected. I mean, could you imagine crowds leaving Coors Field, nice night in Denver, then waiting an hour for a train after a big event? You know, like we do now. Steve Steger took your frustrations to RTD leadership.
Much like all of us coming out of lockdown, Denver's back to focusing on how it looks, especially with all this company coming to town. That led to this question about RTD, which a few of you have had, posed this time by @ColoradoHockeyGirl on Twitter. Ask RTD when they plan to extend light rail service at night. Last train south is at 10:18 p.m., which makes it impossible to take the train to Rockies game. I'm sure with the All-Star game, it'll be worse.
We look at what's going on in our area, and we try to make sure that we have accommodations for those, depending on our resources and our service availability.
That's Michael Ford, the Chief Operating Officer for RTD. Among his many tasks with the agency is figuring out the schedule for buses and trains, especially during big events like the All-Star game. He says RTD will scale up in the next week.
We'll have extra chains, the commuter and light rail trains, and additional buses where needed.
The agency figures out how to plan for events like the All-Star game by getting as much data as they can.
Ticket purchases are one aspect of that. Intel from other constituents that we work with. The vending events, they tell us what's going on, what they expect.
COVID has scaled back the transit agency's scheduling a bit, hence the last southbound train leaving Union Station at 10:18 every night. Ford says they're working on slowly getting back to normal, proposing in September service changes, one extra southbound train on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, leaving at 10:48.
Be patient with us. We're trying to make changes. We're trying to accommodate the needs, and we're working very hard to, bring back service.
So Ford says patience is key. The other is planning, RTD says. They post those schedules and rider alerts on their website, also do a lot of posting on Twitter. Ford says that they do tend to add trains when they expect more people at, say, a big Rockies game. They did that this weekend with the fireworks games to try to accommodate the larger crowds. He says it all depends on that old thing, data, that we've talked about a lot on this show. They get data from all sorts of different places, and that's how they're able to make those decisions.
And I know they certainly hear from a lot of frustrated people because people assume, well, you knew there were going to be X number of people downtown. How come you didn't scale up for this particular day?
RTD insists that they build these schedules based on the data on ridership that they have, the needs currently. They also are in a period right now where they're recovering from the pandemic, where they had to cut a lot of service because ridership was way down, and it'll take them a little while to adjust back up.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Direct result of last summer's social justice protests. Colorado's law enforcement officers are getting body cameras, and today that timeline moved up a year. Democratic Governor Jared Polis signed a bill today making July of next year the body camera deadline. Agencies will also have to release unedited video from those body cameras within 21 days if requested. They can push it to 45 days if they write a letter saying it'll interfere with their investigation. So you see those electronic billboards on Colorado's interstates. They'll tell you about traffic jam up ahead, some kind of hazard on the road. Lately, though, they have been saying Ozone Action Day alert. It's the state's warning to us that we're going to have poor, unhealthy air quality that day. Our Marshall Zellinger found that there's a way for you to check the air quality near you. And in doing that, Marshall discovered an annual phenomenon that's recorded by the monitors.
This might be the most obvious air monitoring station in the Denver metro area, because the one at 21st and Broadway says Air Monitoring Station. This one near Adams City Middle School at 72nd and Birch in Commerce City is less obvious. What this and other air monitoring stations detect get converted to colors and numbers on the state's Air Quality Index website.
As far as the colors are concerned, green is good. Now, when you get into yellow, that's going to be moderate. And then upwards into orange and red, then you talk about unhealthy for sensitive groups and even worse than that.
Scott Landis is the meteorology and prescribed fire supervisor for the state health department. He actually recommends this website, fire.airnow.gov. It compiles the state's monitors with other air quality monitors with a focus on what we're breathing, like fire and smoke.
We are watching the fires out in California and Oregon. I don't anticipate any major smoke impacts over the next couple of days, but we may see a bit more haze in the sky as we go through the middle part of the work week.
There's an air quality monitor site called Purple Air that's also included in this map. Michelle tweeted us about a very high reading she noticed in the Cole neighborhood at a monitor at Russell Square Park at 37th and Gaylord in Denver.
If you look at monitors throughout the rest of the Denver metropolitan area, it's an outlier. It's running much higher than the rest of the monitors.
I went to the park to see if I could see the Purple Air device, and I couldn't find it. A spokesman for Purple Air told me it could be indoors, or possibly reading high due to a lack of maintenance. I also did not find this specific monitor on the fire.airnow.gov website.
If they start seeing some flaky readings, if they see one of the channels of the monitor not working properly, they will remove that from their map until they start seeing more consistent, accurate data.
What this website does show is an annual event that happened right on cue Monday in Denver, in Longmont, in Greeley. At midnight on July 5th, the air quality around the metro area and beyond became poor.
Fireworks happens every early morning, July 5th.
And would you believe that at the air quality station closest to where we are here at Spear and Logan, last night or this morning at midnight, we saw that same spike because of fireworks continuing through the metro area. Kyle, when it's green like it was prior to the 4th of July, that's good. When it gets to the orange and the red, that's when you need to reconsider whether you want to be outside if you suffer from asthma or COPD or something like that.
I remember, Marshall, back during the early days of the pandemic when they were trying to convince people to cover coughs and wear masks, that we referred to those droplets as patriot particles. I now feel like we should move the moniker on to the air quality on July 4th into the 5th. We've got patriot particulates.
Well, now we have something to do. Stay up till midnight tonight, watch this air quality monitor, and see if we see that spike again.
And the people that think that it's appropriate to set off fireworks 3 days after July 4th, that's a separate conversation. But thank you, Marshall. 6 months after Insurrection Day, there are 9 Coloradans facing charges for the storming of the U.S. Capitol, and those people could face real consequences. The conservative leaders in Colorado, however, who stoked the election rigging conspiracies, they continue to reap the benefits of promoting the big lie to a willing audience. So take Jenna Ellis, the former president's legal advisor. She's got a new gig leading an advocacy group that promotes the former president's allegations of widespread voter fraud. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, who told supporters on Insurrection Day that today is 1776. She's now easily Colorado's most prominent and popular elected Republican. RNC National Committee man Randy Corcoran, who pushed election rigging fantasies, he's still on 710 KNUS radio, now using his platform to rail against COVID vaccines. And State Representative Ron Hanks, who said he was outside the Capitol on Insurrection Day, got to fundraise off his claim that it was really Antifa inside. 9 everyday Coloradans could lose their freedom for what happened that day. But for Colorado's conservative politicians, the big lie is still quite profitable. Douglas County Sheriff's Office has a new intel gathering operation. They want to know what people are saying about the stuff that law enforcement cares about, trying to sift through the chatter to see what is real and what is local. They're using something called Zen City, a social media monitoring platform that identifies what people are talking about in specific areas and helps law enforcement know when people are talking about topics of interest to officers. For example, street racing. The Douglas Sheriff's Office used Zen City to preemptively target and then show up where street racers said they were going to gather. They watched people turn around and leave, and they use it to target the messages that they share with the community.
It allows us just to monitor, and then we know, oh wait, we need to push something out over here. This is a big county. What affects some parts of the county doesn't affect the other part of the county, and so it allows us to target messaging. I've always thought if you put something out on one of the social media networks, you're asking someone to listen to you. And I serve you, so I'm going to listen.
He's listening. The ACLU has said that kind of law enforcement listening is invasive because they've seen departments specifically monitor accounts that discuss police brutality. The Delco Sheriff's Office says that it is not monitoring social justice movements, but the sheriff said he didn't see an issue with that if what they're listening to is public. Next is an airing on Wednesday night, tomorrow night, due to hockey, so we are kicking off your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign early this week. It's garden season. There are 188 gardens dotting the metro area that are group projects, have been for years, through Denver Urban Gardens. It's where neighbors work together to grow healthy, sustainable food and grow community at the same time. Your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign will help Denver Urban Gardens build new community gardens and support existing gardens in underserved neighborhoods. Denver Urban Gardens, or DUG as they call themselves, heard from its community members recently that some of the garden plots are thriving and some really need more support, especially in neighborhoods without the resources that other places have. Now, sometimes that support is physical infrastructure, tools, water access, shade, seeds, compost, and sometimes the support needed, translators, so that more people can learn how to successfully grow their own food in Colorado. Denver Urban Gardens has already started on this work to make its gardens more productive for the communities that they serve and to make that gardening experience accessible to more people. Healthy, fresh food and strengthened communities are their goals, have been for that nonprofit for 35 years in our community. Text thanks to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you that link to donate. Of course, I'll never ask you to contribute to a cause without giving myself, so I'll match the first 50 donations of $5. Goodness knows how much those of us who garden at home pour into our own gardens every year. And this is our chance to help other Coloradans feel that same joy and productivity and connection to both nature and their neighbors. The newest plateau in our state is our COVID cases. The reason is probably what you think it is. And there are municipalities and school districts that are just flush with federal pandemic relief cash. One large district is asking its community for spending suggestions. Just don't suggest they pay people more. That's next. Steamboat Springs considered closing its river because it was so hot. Then the clouds came in and it kept the Yampa open for business or fun or whatever you wanted to be in the river for. The city was going to shut off public access if the water got above 75 degrees for 2 days straight. It got to 74.5 degrees on July 4th, was pushing it again yesterday until cloudy weather and a little rain came along. Steamboat says that now resets the clock. Today, U.S. Geological Survey monitoring station on the Yampa read the temperature at 73.9 degrees. Colorado's steady decline in COVID cases has now plateaued. It comes as the Delta variant is spreading more easily among the unvaccinated. The state's 7-day average of new cases has leveled off in the last several days. There were 160 new cases reported in the last 24 hours. The weekly average for new cases in a day is now just over 300. Hospitalizations have seen that same stall. Just a good reminder that there are still people getting very sick from COVID in our state. 284 of them in the hospital right now. And we know from state data the vast majority are unvaccinated. Poudre School District has a suggestion box. Have an idea, put it in the box. This box has millions of dollars attached to it. They've got $15.5 million in pandemic relief, and they're looking for the community's guidance on how to spend it. Poudre School District covers 50 schools in northern Colorado. Their district survey asks people to rank their spending priorities. Mental health support, safety improvements, some infrastructure fixes. The district is saying, though, it will not consider salary increases. That's because this is a one-time pot of money. They couldn't sustain it. They're going to get this budget together by August, and if approved, the district will get that federal taxpayer money for the next school year.
Dry in Denver, but we are continuing to monitor storms across the southeastern portion of Colorado. And because of those storms, these areas do have a marginal risk for severe weather. So in this green area, we're going to watch for the possibility for locally heavy downpours, strong winds, and even hail. We also have a flash flood watch that'll be in effect this evening. For the rest of us, we do have an air quality alert day. This is going to be for Denver, further north through Fort Collins, all of this brown area. So this is going to be another action day for ozone. That's going to be until tomorrow afternoon. And then over the next 7 days, we continue to see these temperatures rise before falling back down. A high of 99 degrees is possible Thursday. Temperatures back in the 80s for the weekend.
A Bronco in the 60s, a mayor in the 80s.
His legacy in that community runs deep, and he's done so much.
The city he once led wants to make sure his name is remembered. Next. Naming things after living people has long been tricky business. Think about how our perceptions of some very popular people has shifted with new information. On the flip side, though, part of the purpose is to let the living enjoy the honor while they can. Odell Berry's city wants him to experience that.
Odell Berry on the New York 48.
When I would go to my friend's house, they would talk about, well, your dad played for the Denver Broncos. What's that like? Or your dad was the mayor of the city, as mayor of our city growing up. You know, he started as the Northland Recs Department, and then he became city councilman, and then he became mayor. My father was city council and the mayor of basically an all-white neighborhood, and he was an African American. I could count on one hand how many African Americans were in our communities, but that did not matter to him. What was important to him was to raise the community.
His son had mentioned, like, we definitely want to be able to have something that's lasting.
Right here, it's going to be a park, they tell us.
I went back to the dice board and I said, hey, we have got to get something in the city named after him.
You know, we got to beautify it a little more here. But just to have a place that has his name on it in his town, in his city.
And then Berry streaked straight down the sidelines for a touchdown.
Who was Odell Berry? Was he just a football player for the Denver Broncos? Was he just the mayor? No. He was so many more things, and this will give us that legacy. So when I'm gone, my kids are gone, this will still be here. And that's what's important to our family.
The most Colorado thing we've seen today is kind of like staring directly into the sun. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we've seen today is a reminder that the state really did just nail the design of its flag. Narissa sent us a picture from her walk in Bar Lake State Park yesterday. The view at 6:14 a.m. That is a gorgeous piece of composition from Narissa. Picture perfect. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign this week is helping Denver Urban Gardens add to its 188 gardens across the 6 counties of the metro area and to better support the existing gardens that exist in underserved communities across the area. Denver Urban Gardens has been creating these spots where people come together to grow healthy food for their families and their neighbors, and they also have built community with their neighbors. And their focus at this point is making sure that each garden also has the infrastructure support that they need to succeed. That could mean water access, that could mean shade to grow different types of plants and vegetables, it could be seeds, or maybe it means translated gardening guides to reach more people in the community. Text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you that link to join me in giving. A rare positive piece of feedback tonight. Figure once a month we should read one of those. Michael said, just wanted to thank you for bringing interesting stories and newsworthy pieces into our living rooms each and every night. It is beneficial for Colorado. Appreciate that. We'll share that with the whole team. Marshall and Steve and Lawrence and Jen and Foster and everybody who helped out on the show. See you next time.